is to start with Kuf Yud Beis because I want to finish it. And then in Mitzvah Hashem, if we finish it, which I hope we will, we'll go back to Kuf Yud Aleph now. We'll go back to it next week. We'll go on and see. Okay. HaMitzvah Kuf Yud Beis. HaMitzvah Ashtayim Esrei Umeir. He shetzivonu liyos HaMitzvah Yodua Lakol. That's Ibn Tibbon's translation. Yodua Lakol in Kapach Laseis Hekel HaMitzvah. Yodua Lakol is it's very fuzzy. You don't know what it means. And the Hekel Laseis Hekel HaMitzvah in Kapach is much more understandable. That the Mitzvah has to make something of a hekel that people know that he's a Mitzvah. You have the same issue in Shiur Yud Aleph that Ibn Tibbon is Metagimit that he also there he's Metagim that it's hekel the gam hekel the hekel shetivoron shenase the Mitzvah based to Mosor and Kapach there he says. גם בהקט שתיבורון שנעשה למצב באיס תומוסי is very similar to Kapach there. So let's work with the working idea that we're talking about the heket. Okay? Now, then the next few words, the word lakol is a little bit, I didn't find it. It's not hekel lakol. It's really it's your. So the other way to do is lakol. The hekel itself takes care of everything. So Ibn Tibbon continues and said ad sheyugdel mimenu b'nei adam. So the way he phrases it, ad sheyugdel b'nei adam, it's almost like a shiurim in the mitzvah that he has to be a doer so much, which is a very odd thing. Way Kapach translates, it's Kedei Shiur B'Shvimenu. The reason why I make a heker is that other people should stay away from this, should become Tomei. In Shiur Yud Aleph, Ibn Tibbon is Metagimit, also is Halchoka, or Yuvdelo Achoka, and Kapach, that is Kedei. See, but there's a difference. He doesn't say there in Yud Aleph, Ibn Tibbon doesn't say Ad Shiachiku, Kedei Shiachiku. So I would assume the working assumption is that it should be like today, and that it's the purpose of the mitzvah is not a shiur. That's what I would assume, and that's what we're working with. Okay. Now, so the mitzvah is a mitzvah heker mitzvah, and the purpose in order that other people should be perished in them. Vatzarua asher boy hanega, begod yufrumim, v'oshia purua. That is the expression of what the heker is, and this is what Shiur Yud Aleph is talking about. That the consists of many chalokim, priya and atifo and tome yikra, and the Ram quotes the whole pasuk, and all these chalokim come together to make heker mitzvah. And this was explained by Richuss in Shiur Yud Aleph. Now comes the interesting part. Comes the Rambam and makes the following statement. V'horaya al heyois ze Mitzvas Aseh. So it means the Rambam is ready to accept that someone should question whether this is a Mitzvas Aseh. And then he quotes a Sefer as a proof that it's Mitzvas Aseh. So the question is, what's the issue? Begod of you for It basically seems to be almost like a tzivur. So what's the problem? That's I just want to know. He's trying to to explain that we know from the Matiki Ashmur, from the Sifra, that a certain way of looking at this is wrong, and we know that it's a mitzvah. That l'chir is what he's saying. The question is, what is it? So I thought the following. One could say that maybe Hatzavua Asher Boy Hanega, okay, maybe is not a separate mitzvah, but is somewhat of an expression of it is under the umbrella, and I'll explain how it's under the umbrella. There's a mitzvah Aseh according to the Rambam, of Mitzvas Tumas Soras Odom, which the mitzvah mean are mitzvahs, which you know is mitzvah Kuf Aleph, and part of that may be that the Tumas Odom is mechayiv him to do Priya, Primo, Atifa, and Toma Yikra. However, that's only in Mitzvah Muchot. In Mitzvah Muzga, there's no mitzvah of Begod of Yuflumim, Begoy. So then you could say that's what we call in Shirish Zayin Fikah. The Hainu, there are two ways that the mitzvah, that the din, the mitzvah of Tumas, Tzaras, Odom expressed itself. In a Muchlot, it expressed itself with all the Dinei Heker, and in a Muzgo, it expressed itself without the Dinei Heker. And these dinim, this expression, this Heker, is not a separate mitzvah, but it's part of the mitzvah Tumas Mitzvah. That's what I would say. That's one approach. And then the chiddush is that that's not so. Another option, if you recall, in Mitzvah Tzadi Vov, the Ram used a phrase of bikon. It's to be in a matzah. There's no tzivui. There's no command. And it could be that when you talk about bikon, where it's to be in a matzah, without a Kabbalah Matiki Ashmur, it wouldn't be a mitzvah. And if you look at the Lashon, the Pasuk, Begod of you, Flumim, Begod Sheyeh Flumim. Okay? The Sofam Yate, we'd have to understand that Sofam Yate, he's supposed to do something, but Toma Yikra, that would be, if that you would take this approach, you would have a problem in Bikon. So I'm not, and you might have said that even without the Kabbalah, that it's a mitzvah. And maybe the better way to say is that it should have been a fikah of mitzvah. Okay. But what's the proof? The proof is, let's see what he says. Omram b'sifra, this is Tazriya, in Parsha Hey, Lefi Lefi shenema es roisho lo yifra uvegodem lo yifroim yochol afal pishu menuga. The question is, who's the who? Who referring to? Referring to some mysterious person that should still, that he's allowed to do it even though he's menuga, umani mekayim. Roishal Yipson is referring to the Kohen, to the Kohen Gadol. As Roishal Yipom, yes, Bogodol Yipom, Yochel Afa Pishu Humanuga, Umani Mekayim Bogodol Yufumim, Roshi Afua, Bechol Odom, Chutz Mikohen Gadol, Talmuloi Masher Boy Hanega. That's something extra. Yochel Afilu Kohen Gadol Yiu Bogodol Frumim Ukuyim. So even before we get to the proof, he's saying that Prumim is Kruyim, is ripped, and Rosh Yefurua is Vigadol Pera. It means to let the hair grow wild. Okay? So the Chiddush is that a Kohen Gadol, even though he's a Mitzvah, has Begod of Kruyim, which he in general is not allowed to have. As we started before, Es Roisha Lo Yifra, Begod Lo Yifron, but a Kohen Gadol Mitzvah has Begod of Prumim and Roisha Prua Begadol Pera. We still don't understand what this has to do with anything. We know that a Kohen Gadol, even though he's a Kohen Gadol and has an ashora of Esreshel Yifra, Begodol Yifron, if he's a Mitzera, he has Roishe Ferua and Begodol Prumim. That's what it says. Now, then it continues. Umevuahu shekohen gadol sheyifroim or yifroya b'loisaseh. That's what's going on before. V'asherish etzleinu kol mokim she'ato motzei aseh b'loisaseh. The general rule, the working assumption, im ato yochel l'kayim shneim mutar, no problem. V'im lav yovo aseh v'yitches lo yisaseh. So he says, me'acha shemotzonu l'shoinim shekohen gadol shenitztara peirei u'feirem. It means it's aseh dechel lo yisaseh. Nim seshi mitzvas aseh. And simply before we get involved, you can't have aseh dechel lo yisaseh unless it's a mitzvah aseh. So the fact that it's aseh dechel lo yisaseh, we know there's a mitzvah aseh, and it's been proven that this is a mitzvah aseh. Frankly, the Teres Kohanim doesn't say anything. It just says there's a sepik zeh kosuv that the Kohen Gadol is Pereim Feirem. It doesn't explain why. So the Rambam assumes that this Gzeres HaKosuv is an expression of Aseh Dechel Yisaseh. We don't know how he knows this or why he says this, but this is his premise. And the base of that, he proves that that the Hekem Mitzera, Priya and Prima, is a Mitzvah Aseh. That is what we have here. Now, let's do things slowly. The Kohen Gadol is going to let his hair grow, correct? That's Roishe Ferua is Gidol Sar. And there's an aseh, the growing of the hair is an aseh. And when I'm not dealing with the problem, which we talked about the problem of Nazir, that Nazir also has an aseh to grow his hair, and we pointed out to Mamela. We discussed this in Nazir, and whatever the problem is there, and whatever it is the same thing over here. And also, it's out of his control. He can just cut it, but it's always going to grow, okay? The Lois Aseh, the Ram quotes in Hilchos Bias HaMikdash, Perek Aleph HaChuyud, Avo Kohen Gadol Oser Legadol Pera V'Lekroye Begodav Le'olam Shahari Tomid Hu B'Mikdash. Okay, so he's not allowed to let his hair grow wild. And it's a very interesting thing. Tomid Hu B'Mikdash, it means, I'd assume conceptually, that's his place, okay? Because the Mitzvah can't be in the Mikdash, and the Ram is a double portion, there still is an ashol. However, there's a problem over here. Because what does Rosh Plur mean? To grow hair, as he says, of a gadol pera. But the Ram in Mishneh Torah in Perek Yud of Hilchos Tumas Ras Halacha Vav seems to say that Rosh Plur means that his head should be covered. Mitzvas Aseh, she'yi ha'mitzvah ha'muchot mechus roshei kol yemei chilutei v'oite al sofom ka'over u'peirein begodav modia ovim. So this is clear. So if it's mechus roshei, as there's no aseh de chaloseh by pahua. However, the Rambam clearly says in Hilchos Tumas Aras, when he talks about aseh de chaloseh, he says that the aseh priya and prima doicha. So the question, how could this happen? He just said that the aseh is goysha mechusa. So I'm not sure how difficult this is at all. Maybe it's not a problem at all. The Gemara Mekotten on Tezvov and Aleph, Toshma Vatzaru Labas Kohen Gadol Begodav Yufumim Sheyiu Mikuroyim V'lo Sheyeh Farua Ein Priya Gilo. Sa, Div Rabbi Eliezer. That's Rabbi Eliezer's opinion. Rabbi Kiva Oimer, Nemu Havaye Beroish, V'nemu Havaye Bebeged. Ma Havaye Amur Bebeged, Dove Shechutz Migufoy, Af Havaye Beroish, Dove Shechutz Migufoy. My Lav Atfilin, Omer Popo, Loi Achumso V'sudro. Okay? So they're head coverings. So Taisus learns the head coverings should be off, and the Ram learns the head coverings should be on. However, what the Rambam did over here is the Rambam learned that Rabbi Akiva, in his disagreement with Rabbi Eliezer, is not disagreeing, he's just adding something. There is priya, according to everyone, of Skidol Sa, but he's also being Moisef that Mechusa Rosh. And this I found in the Shulchan Aruch HaAsid, or excuse me, Aruch HaShulchan HaAsid, Hilchos Negoyim Siman Sadi Hesiv Beis, he also learns like that it's a Hisofa, because the Chastiu B'nei Obey in the Ram, because it's Aseh D'Chol Eisaseh, and it's not like the Sfas Emes and Moy Cotton in Tes Vav and Aleph. Okay, now, it's certainly clear, and this, that the Isa Pri and Prima is even Shalei B'Shas Avodah, because only B'Shas Avodah, the HaMitzvos is not an Oived. Even a Kohen Gadol, who might be Oived Oinein, is not Oived when he's Mitzvah. And in fact, the Kohen Gadol, who is a Mitzvah, has to be outside of Machne Yisrael. So he's not even close to the Mikdash. And that goes together with the Rambam, that the Isa Priya Prima is Shloi B'Sas Avodah, as the Rambam said, La'olam, and that's Tamid. And this Din Tamid, even though physically he's impossible to be in the Mikdash. But I guess that's where his mindset is, whatever that means. Now also, one reading a certain Rambam we'll see might have said that the Isa of Prima is only Al Mesa. It's not an Isa of Begod of Purim and Kruyim. And that's the Mash Pashas the Rambam in Klei Mikdash Perek Hei Chavav. Ukshimavarin Oisai Sudas Havro of the Kohen Gadol Kol Om Mesum Al Oretz Vu Meisav Asafso Ve'eno Kerei Al Mesa Geshar Kohanim Shenema Ubegod of Yifrom V'im Kora Loike. So you might have assumed that it's only Dafka Kriya Mesa, but L'cheira, in context of these Ramas here, that's not the case. So now, let's take the next step. Now, we know now that the lav of the Kohen Gadol to have Begod Purim and Rosh Prua. And the Aseh over here is Mechayev, Rosh Prua, and Begod Purim. So that's the Aseh D'Chol Eisaseh. Now, that's the Ram says, Yovo Aseh v'yitches Leisaseh. See here, let's start like this. I'm a little confused. What's the Isa of the Kohen Gadol? The Isa of the Kohen Gadol let's start with this. The Isa of, let's say, the mitzvah of the Mitzvah. What's his mitzvah? His mitzvah is to walk around with Begod and Kriyim, or to do a Ma'aseh Kriya. So I would suggest, and I think that it's a double poshut, that it's to walk around with Begod of Kruyim, and not the Ma'aseh Kriya. Why do I say that? Because the mitzvah is the Heka Mitzvah. And the Heka is not with the Ma'aseh Kriya. The Heka is that when people look at him, they see that he has Begod of Kruyim. Correct? Then I ask myself another question. So, when he tears his beged, is he mekayim the mitzvah? The mitzvah is not the Ma'aseh Kriya. The mitzvah is Begod of Kruyim. And the truth is, if he had and put on Begod of Kruyim, he also would be okay. So the Ma'aseh Kriya is the mitzvah, The begod of Klim is the mitzvah. Okay? So, where is the Aseh? For example, let's add another idea. Comes the Minchas Chinuch in Mitzvah Kuf Ayin Aleph, Ois Aleph, and he holds a double portion. The mitzvah is Levish's begotten Purim. And he says, and he even goes further, and he says that he proves from this, which is an amazing thing, that the Isa of the Kohen Gadol is not the Ma'aseh Kriya, but he should be Shelo Yelech B'Gad Pumim. And to go with the B'Gad Pumim it's an Aseh Derech Aseh. Okay? But and then you would also say that it's the wearing, and it says Liyos in the Minyan HaKotzer, Liyos HaMitzvos Yadu L'chol B'Dvorim Amurim Boy B'Gad Yufumim U'B'Roy Sheyefuruah V'Asof Miyateh. And that's what he says in the Pratim. It's Shehei HaMitzvos Mefusam B'Kriyas B'Gadov U'Priyas. It's what he's wearing. So the question is, if it's what he's wearing, so how does this play itself out in Aseh Derech Aseh? Because when he tears the tearing of the beged is not the issue, is not the mitzvah. And so what's the Aseh Derech Aseh? The Aseh Derech Aseh is not the clear, but the wearing of the Begad of Beguim, and that's the way the Minchas Chinuch learns. So let's ask a different question. Rosh Pruah is not a pu'ula, right? It happens memela. So what is he supposed to do? He is constantly growing his hair, and that's an Aseh. So how does the Aseh Derech Aseh work? So I would tell you that the Ma'aseh Kriya, you have to say the Ma'aseh Kriya makes a beged kruah, okay? And he has to have a beged kruah. And the only way, you see, begod of, I would tell you like this, it's a very broad interpretation. It says, Loishay Yefuruah begod of you frumim. They should be frumim. So there could be two ways. He does a kriya while he's wearing the beged, or he's wearing begod of kriyim. Either one of them is Aseh Derech Aseh, because he's not allowed to wear begod of kriyim. Or maybe, you see, I'm only not sure, you see the Minchas Chinuch seems to limit it that it's a Levisha. I ask a question like this. The Ram says, "Vim kora loike," by koyin in Klei Mikdash Perek Hey Aloch. So, is wearing a beged korua would be chayiv malchus for the kriya? I understand for shatnez, but what does it do? The love of if we wearing that's considered kumbasei. If he's wearing it, so I would say that the ma'aseh kriya, because that's the Ram says the lashon Ram vin kora loike. So I would tell you and extend the minchas chinuch. It's not only wearing the beged, but the ma'aseh kriya itself, both from the point of view of the kohen gadol, that he shouldn't do a ma'aseh kriya, as he says that he's loike for it, okay, and not only the wearing of the beged kua, but the kriya of the beged, which is olav, is also the mitzvah, and that would be the aseh dechalois. That is point number one. But if that's true, it's a very interesting thing. But then I ask a much more important question. That is, in the basic definition of Aseh Dechaloisaseh, we talk about Be'idna. I always thought that when you talk about Be'idna, you talk about when you mekayem the Aseh, when you violate the lav. So I ask a question over here. Don't we know in Shorish Yud Aleph that all the chalokim over here of Hekem Etzera, that the ma'akiv zeh, you need Reisha Flua, Begod the Plumim, Sofam Yate, and Tome Yiko. If you're missing one of them, you don't have anything. So l'cheira, you're missing Be'idna. Befrat, I would have assumed that you're mekayim the mitzvah of Rosh Pruah of Gidol Sa'ar only if you have a Sa'ar of Shloshim Yoim. So he's doing the Kriya on the Beged Miyad, and there's no Kiyum. The Kiyum is only 30 days when he has the Rosh Pruah. Maybe I'm wrong. So how do you talk about Aseh Dechaloiseh? The old rule that we had Be'idna, what does it mean? So when you talk about the Kriyas HaBeged, and the Beged's on him, so B'shaita, when he's created the Beged, either you extend the definition that the Ma'aseh Kriya is part of it, or he's wearing a Beged Kua, and he's making the Beged Kua. Okay. But over here, where's the Be'idna? There's no Rosh Pruah yet. And you get the impression that each one of these independently, Rosh Pruah or Begod the Plumim. You get the impression the Rosh Pruah is Deicha and the Begod the Plumim is Deicha. So I have a different question. Even just putting the whole thing, the question is like this. I have a mitzvah, and there are many chlokei mitzvah. There's priya and prima, and each one is ma'akiv zeh. Can I imagine Aseh Dechaloisaseh by it? Because until I have all of them, I have no techiyah. In one of them, I have no kiyum mitzvah. And we're proving that it's a mitzvah from Aseh Dechalois Aseh. So you mean Aseh Dechalois Aseh is also good enough on Chelkei mitzvah. But how is that possible? The Chelkei mitzvah, by definition, is not be'idna. Unless you could imagine, but you can't imagine that the pur and the prima and everything should be basachas. But even if you imagine that, I ask a simple question. Can you make a statement if that's what's happening? Can you make a statement over here and say, "Afilu kohen gadol you ki umavur hu shekohen gadol sheyifloim o yifloya b'loy saseh v'asherish etzleinu kol mokim she'ata moitzi aseh b'loy seh im at yochel mutav im lav או יבוא עשה ויתחול, אבל אחר שמצאנו לשם שכהן גודל שנצטרה פריה ופריים, each one, פריה ופריים, so is nimsa she mitzvahs aseh. So I assume any one of them, you could say aseh dechalois aseh. So I think there's a very important yesod over here. It's true that it's chelkei mitzvah, and each one of them are ma'akev in the kiyum mitzvah. You need all together to have the kiyum mitzvah. But when we say that you need be'idna, when we say you need be'idna, and it's certain type of dichui is unacceptable, it's a dichui in a hechshe mitzvah. That a hechshe mitzvah is not deiche. Okay? Like putting down the offer in Kisi Adam, the Gemara talks about in Beitza. But before putting down the offer, before, offer l'mayla and offer l'mata, and when you do the whatever you make, the avonim, whatever it is, only a hefshe, you grind the avonim to have Kisi Adam. If you didn't prepare before, the dekanotes, however the Gemara is working out there, that's only a hefshe. But Reishe Farua, or Begod of Frumim, that is the Maaseh mitzvah. True, there's no kiyum mitzvah b'shaita, but the din be'idna is if you have a Maaseh mitzvah and a lois aseh, aseh dechalois aseh. You don't need the kiyum mitzvah b'shaita. It's only if you have a hechsher. So since begod of frumim, and there will be a kiyum mitzvah over here, and you have the Maaseh mitzvahs, aseh dechalois aseh. It's an amazing thing. That's what's happening over here. Now, next. So what we've proven is that the mitzvah of Hekem Mitzvah, and since we say Ades Aseh Dechalois Aseh, it's a rayedoch that they are mitzvahs. And the Ram is not ready to accept, maybe flip it, maybe that Aseh Dechalois Aseh requires the kiyum mitzvah, and therefore it's not Aseh Dechalois Aseh. And therefore you need separate says a kosuv. And once you have a separate says a kosuv, they have no proof about anything. The Ram says no, it's definitely Aseh Dechalois Aseh, and we have to conclude that even the Chelkei mitzvah is an Aseh Dechalois Aseh. And that's the proof. Okay, now, next. And the fact that the Matiki Ashmur said Aseh Dechalos said, we know that it's a mitzvah. Because hey, they can't be Aseh Dechalos if it's not a Mitzvas Aseh. Okay, very nice. Next. Kufar Bosnu Hakabolo Sheshal Tmeim Gam Ken Chayom Lasas La'atzam Hakolo. What's the Kabbalah over here? And let me just skip a little bit. He says, Gam Ken Chayom Lasas La'atzam Hakolo Achi Yechikim B'nei Odom Yifushu B'nei Odom, whatever the Gigis is, whatever the translation is, Voloshin Sifro, Tome Meis, Uboil Nida, V'chol HaMetam Mes Odom, any person who's Tome, not Tome by itself, but is Metame Es Odom, the Hainu, that is an Avatuma. If an Odom is a Rishon Latuma, he touches Sheretz, he doesn't require Heke. But if it's a Tomei Meis or Boil Nida, V'chol Metamin Es Ha'odom, Minayin Talmuloima V'Tomei Tomei Yikra. You know how you know what he's reading? You know how he's reading? It's an amazing thing. V'Tomei, comma, this Tomei should call out that he's Tomei. It means anyone is Tomei, not V'Tomei Tomei Yikra going on. Who is this? What's the subject of Yikra? Is the subject of Yikra the Mitzvah or Stamatome? So l'chera in Pshuta Shel Mikra, it's the Mitzvah, and in this Rabbi sign is the Pirush Makubal, and that's the Kabbalah. That is referring to the Tomei. The Tomei Yikra. Ukvar Bosnu HaKabbalah, the Pirush Makubal. Sheshal Tmeim Gam Kain. It's not an exclusion. It's not exclusion, right? But it's in addition. The Pirush Makubal is being moisiv. And that's the Lashon Sifra, Tomei Meis, V'toy Boil Nido, Chol Metamin Odom, Minayin Tamalim V'tomei Yikra. V'hapirush, and that's again the Pirush Makubal. Shekol Tomei Tzorch Sheyachriz Al Atzmoi Atuma. V'zeh Sheyosim La'atzmoi Hakora. Okay, now here. He says over here, Kva Nimsa Lona Kabakabola Shigam Shout Meim Sichel Naseis La'atzmam Heker Kidei Sheyifushu La'aseis La'atzmam Heker. That's what he has also in Ibn Tibbon. And then, okay, we'll see later. We'll see, he says it very clearly of the other thing, but he says, la'ases la'atzmum means you have to do something to yourself. It's not calling out verbally, but it's doing something to yourself. Okay. Now, comes the Mishnah Melech in Hilchos Yontif, Perek Zayin Alocha Tes Zayin. He says, U'mashe kosav Rabbeinu, B'oisei Perek Din Ches, V'loi HaMitzoroim Bilvad, Ela Kol HaMetamin Es HaOdom Chayov L'Hidia Shehem Tmein K'dei Sheyifushu Mehem, Hu Asmachta Ba'alma. Asmachta. Ukahi di amino and beperek kama de moi cotton remes letzion menatera minayin ababo omo mehocha v'tomei yiko tuma kiraloi v'oimeris loi ploish. The tumor means you make you make a tzion on a kever, the tumor is calling, okay? So I would tell you, the tumor, that's a remes, but the tame calling, that's the pirush makubal. So this Mishnah Melech, I can't tell you anything, but if you ask me, the Ram Sefer Mitzvos is foolish that it's a pirush makubal. Okay? That's what he's saying. Now, Rabbi says it's more than that. So good. So there's a pirush makubal. Okay, it's very nice. Okay, it's the pirush Moshe Rabbeinu. But the Rambam in Sefer Mitzvos, it's not his place to tell you all the pirushim mekubalim which might be in any particular mitzvah, and the mitzvah is about a mitzvah. So good. So there's the pirush mekubal telling it every Tomei also has to do this. So I asked a very simple question. So what does it have to do? Comes the Rambam and says that this pirush mekubal is not stam a pirush mekubal. It's an add-on that the mitzvah is on mitzvah in pshuto shamika. He has to do all these things, and any tomei who's metamei es adam, there's a mitzvah of tomei v'tomei yikra, and therefore it's a minyan mitzvahs. And even though the pirush mekubal and the pshuto shamika seem to be antithetic, it's part of the mitzvah, and it's in minyan mitzvahs. And it's only because of Pirush Makubal they didn't quote it over here. That's what he's doing, an amazing thing. And the emes Rabbi say, this is supported by the Minyan HaKotzer in Kuf Yud Beis. He says like this: Lios HaMitzvah Yadu Al B'dvar Mamurim Boy B'God Yifumim. What does it have to do, Rabbi Sai, with minyan mitzvahs? He says no, that it's part of the mitzvah of mitzvah, and there's a pirush makubal and an add-on, and it's part of the mitzvah. Now, next. There's another issue you can ask yourself. Where is it? Is it a clear, or it's doing something, dressing in a certain way that will make you an obvious tomei? Because he says here, it's very clear. Ze sheyosim la'atz la'aseis la'atzmoi hakor, or the kapach sheyosim la'atzmoi hakor. And later on, kapach says, it's even clearer. He says, "Inyonu shekol tomei tzorich lahachiz al atzmoi shu tomei, v'hu ba'aseis la'atzmoi heker hama'areh." Very clear. He has to do something to make himself visible and understood like that. Shuhu tomei, shenogei boy nitmo. So this, and mistaba like that, because I would assume that it's everything else is something on his body, not on his body, on his clothes or his body, is rosh yefrua, begod yefumim, sof miyate, something covering, and tomei yikra. The Rambam learned that everything is a heker beguf of a malbush. In Mishnah Torah, I was not 100% sure, because he says in Perek Yud Aloch above, Mitzvas Aseh sheyiyeh hamitzera hamuchot mechuse roish kol yemei chiluta v'yoyta asofom ka'over ufoirem begodav u'modia oivrim olov shu tomei shenem tomei v'atzua shebo hayik hanega. So maybe modia, you can imagine is Baal Peh. And he also says in Halacha Ches, Avol v'lo mitzaroyim b'lvad, el kol metamin es ha'odem chayovim lo'ydia l'kol. So maybe mo'ydia is b'peh. And then the Rambam Mishnah Torah is disagreeing. However, the Chinuch quotes the Lashon of the Rambam, and he says very clearly that it's something begufay. Mitzvah, in Sefer Chinuch, Mitzvah Kuf Ayin Aleph, v'chein kol shar hatmeim, gam kein tzirich lo'ydia es atzmon. V'loshen Sefer, Tomei Meisa, Boil Nida, Chol Metamin es Odom, Minayin, Talmud Loima, V'tomei, Tomei Yikra, V'akriyehi, Sheyase Begufay, Inyan Sheyuka L'bnei Odom Shu Tomei, V'yisu Imenu. So it's very strange. It's very clear that it's a heker. He says lohidia. So I guess this lohidia is not a diuk. He himself, his essence, his balbush, his goof, she'umaydia that he's coming. Very interesting. Now, so this is the next part. Okay. Now, the final part, which I'm very sorry, I don't think we're going to finish, but we can start, is an amazing thing. We'll start this, and we'll have to also finish. I want to finish this week. I'm very sorry. But it's a very interesting mitzvah. V'hinei, especially since we learned it in Shiur Aleph, now it's all coming, this part will all come together. Neispoya, shakoros mitzera, and here is something very important. The translation in Tibin and Kapach are almost antithetical here. Hine yispoya shakoros mitzera ein hanoshim chayovos bo. What does that mean? That there's a mitzvah, that even though it's not a mitzvah, it's mangromo, men are chayim, women are not, correct? That's the word say in the text of Ibn Tibin. However, in Kapach, it says, and that's where the Arabic, I think, goes, it says like this. It says, Ukvar hisboye shehekeze shemotzera ein kulon chayvel enoshim. You don't have to, they don't have to do all of them. That's what we can tease. Who amram ish pere preu foirem veinisha perasa polemis. Okay. Now, here is an amazing question. What does this mean? Didn't we learn in Shiur Aleph that each part, each chelik of the Heker Mitzera is ma'akiv, the whole? The whole is only the conglomerate of all these different, the Priya and the Prima, and the Atifas Aloish, and the Tomei Yikor, a certain way of calling out with his goof, correct? So, what does the Rambam mean over here? Vu amram hoish pireya ufeiren ve'ein hoisha piras ufeiremes. And then he says, Avohi sa'ate al sofon. It means she has a tifus salosh. So if she has a tifus salosh, but how does she? So that means that she basically is chayiv in the mitzvah. So I'm not sure exactly, Ibn Tibin with this translation, with the next word is how it fits. And the truth is the Rambam is muchach like this in another place. Because the Rambam, after the Minyan Aseh, in the Seal Minyan Aseh, where he lists the mitzvahs that Noshim are Petuos, he does not list mitzvah Kuf Yud Beis, because Noshim are Chayovos. But Rebbeinu Shalom, didn't the Rambam say in Shiur Aleph that all the Chalokim Ma'akim Zeh? So how can it be such a thing? So the answer is Rabbi Sai, very simple. That the Ma'akvin Zeh is the Chiyuv Priya and the Chiyuv Prima are Ma'akiv. But if there's no mitzvahs prima, then you have the mitzvah with the atifas alosh or whatever else chalokim you have. And maybe that's what's going on with Tomei Yikra, because he doesn't have any of the chalokim, but he's also is b'chal the mitzvah. So there's a major thing going on here, that which we learned in Shorish Aleph, that the chalokim ma'akvin zu is only because of the chiyuv, and you don't have the kiyum without them. But if you are not mechuyev in the other mini heker, so that heker is enough, and that's the mitzvah. So that's what happens over here. What the next thing is, there is a problem over here in the reading. We'll have to go to a lot more. Maybe I'll leave it over. If you want, I can talk about it next week and let me know. But there's something very strange going on. I would really like to compare and contrast to the Mishnah Torah. That was the next thing that I wanted to do. But I just want, before we go to Mishnah Torah, I just, as a simpleton, I want, maybe you can help me over here. He says, V'hu amram v'ish parei u'poirem, v'eino ish paras u'poremes. Avol hi ta'ase asofa. Okay, say that. I asked you, before we read it, a woman's chiyuv in Tomei Yikra, is that b'teres mitzera? Or is that b'teres sha'at meim? So I would have told you, if she's mechuyev, we'll have to see if you want to last next week. There's a Mon Krisis Daf Ches, how you read the pasuk, what it is. We can talk about it, making things very simple now. So I would assume if she's mechuyev and atifas alosh, she's mechuyev the rest in Sofin Yate also. That's what I would have said. Okay, but I challenge you, and I don't know what's going on. Read the last line of the Rambam. Umodia al atzmo, or v'seidia al atzmo, kishar tmeim. Rebbeinu Shalom, what does he want with shar tmeim? Shar tmeim is the pirush makubal of a Tomei Yikra. And I would have said fakir. That's why he's mesaderit. Over here, he mentions the Sifra, that is an alternate reading, a pirush makubal of a Tomei Yikra, and the chiyuv of the Mitzeras is not b'teres v'atzura shebo hanege v'tomei Yikra, ela v'tomei, she is metame. She's an abatuma and she's metame anoshim acherim. Tomei Yikra. I say, what does all that mean? Why should that be? What does he want with this? Okay. Now, you just know, and just to give you a whet your appetite, the Rambam in Mishnah Torah says very clearly, not only noshim are not pereya, and not only are not perem, but they're not oitim asofa. There's no atifas alosh. So you have to understand what the issue is. So there, if you assume, and Mitzvah, we can take it up next if you like, if you assume that noshim are pturos, you have to ask yourself, is the whole chiyuv only b'teres sha'at meim? Then the sha'at meim is very good, because the pturos in the mitzvah b'chal. But then there's a little monkey wrench over here, because the Rambam says that b'chal this mitzvah, there's a din shiluach, chutz l'mokefes chayma. And the Rambam shit is that shiluach chutz l'mokefes chayma is not the shiluach chutz l'Yushalayim. It's not because Yeshua, the Sefer the Rash quotes in the first pair of Kalim, that it's a kedusha of Machne Yisrael. But it's a separate mitzvah. And the Ram quotes it here as a din mitzvah in Hilchos Tumas Saras.
and he doesn't quote it in Uchus Beis HaMikdash, where he quotes Mitzvah and Mishtalech, Chutz L'Gimamach, as Sab Chaim pointed out, it's a separate din. She's Mechuyev in that. And that's, L'Cheir, the Ram quotes it in the middle of his discussion of Heke Mitzvah. So we have to understand what's going on in interaction of everything. Have a nice week and Hatzlacha.